Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us on the Breaking the Silence podcast. My name is Sean McBride with Addiction Rehab Toronto. I am joined here today by Alison Peticca, our lead intake coordinator. Very happy to have you on the show today. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you for having me.
And today we're just going to be talking about some trends that maybe you've seen, being kind of the first person that welcomes people to Addiction Rehab Toronto, which is a big deal. And how long have you been doing that anyway?
For about a year and a half.
Year and a half. Yeah. And so you've probably seen hundreds of people over the time. Yeah. And maybe just for the people who aren't aware, what exactly does lead intake coordinator mean? Like what exactly do you do for people when they first come in?
So typically when they come in the doors, we sit with the families. I explain the family program to the families, and then we talk about the phone calls and what to expect next on that day. So they'll sit with me. I'll do the intake. I'll do the paperwork that I need to do on the clinical side of things, and then they go and sit with the medical staff, and then they're shown to their room and kind of integrated into the program.
Awesome. Do you assign the counselor they're going to have for the duration?
No, I don't do that.
That's not you, right? That's a little less to have to do. Yeah. Perfect. And when you first see someone, do you find they're very apprehensive, scared? Is that the general theme, I'm guessing?
Yeah, a lot of the times, it might be their first time in treatment and they're scared. Yeah. And so are the families.
Yeah.
And I know that because I was a client once myself, right? So I do understand that, and I empathize with them.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Do you find that a lot of your job is just kind of reassuring them that it's the right thing when they first come? Yeah, I could imagine.
Yeah, and just reassuring them and just telling them that they're in a safe place and that it's going to go well, and it's okay to be scared because it's unseen territory.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, I know even for me, I never went through rehab, but I could imagine, do you find a lot of times people are coming in given ultimatums, you do this or
sometimes,
else?
Yeah, interventions and ultimatums, yeah.
Yeah, I could imagine that would be a lot more unnerving too. Yeah, I can only imagine that if someone told me it's this or that. How do you handle that?
If they're coming in with an ultimatum.
Yeah, if someone's if you don't do this, you're gonna lose your job or get a divorce or whatever.
I think it's just more giving them a little bit of space, and as they stay in the program, they're gonna have that shift.
Yeah,
and usually those are the ones that are most successful, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I know just from seeing you around the place, it's a whirlwind. I know you're very busy. What's the other side? What's the most reassuring part of what you do, the most comforting part, the thing that makes you go home thinking I did good today?
I love doing intakes, but I also like to have my personal clients as well. I also do love to teach. I do one group a week just because I'm really busy with intakes, but I absolutely love teaching different groups.
That's awesome. Yeah. When you say teaching, what do you teach primarily, CBT and stuff?
I can, but we have psychotherapists for that. So it depends on what group we decide to do for the week. But I've made a lot of different groups over the past 5 years. So
that's awesome. Something I always like to ask our own clinical staff when they come in, is there any one moment or client or anything that really stands out where you're wow, I really feel like I reached that person?
Oh, I have a lot of clients that I've worked with over the years. I typically say that there was a few that I worked with them for 90 days and then they went off to change their life and go back to school. I'm thinking actually about one of my coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
So he was my client. He went back to school.
That's awesome.
He did his placement here and now he works here. Right, so it's full circle.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's funny because there's so many people I talk to and that's almost always the path, right? It's we go through this hurt and we never want to see other people get hurt again.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to you a little bit earlier, I know a lot of times we cover substance and alcohol abuse. When it comes to gambling and process addictions, do you see a lot of that, or is that maybe 20% of our clients? Or
yeah, give or take, I'd say probably about 15 to 20%. Yeah. And they could also have both sides, right? They could have the addiction piece to substances, and then also gambling, sex, shopping, eating.
Yeah,
food
yeah, that makes
addiction. Yeah.
sense. Yeah. It's almost always something with something. That's why a lot of times I know people don't like the term concurrent, but it's very hard to find somebody who, maybe had ADHD or OCD or PTSD, all these
Mm-hmm.
acronyms, and they self-medicate. And vice versa, right? Sometimes you get, dementia and, all kinds of different side effects from using. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, have you seen like really a trend lately moving one way or the other, like towards a specific substance or towards
I
gambling?
think it's there have been a lot more gambling addicts that
Mm.
came in, also alcoholics,
Hmm.
and so, for the most part,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Do you find that do you think there's any specific reason or just sign of the
Yeah, I'm
times
not.
or?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's just, I think with gambling in particular, I think it's just so accessible.
yeah,
Before you used to had to go to a bookie or go to off track betting or to the
yeah.
casino. Now it's just,
On your phone.
two
Yeah,
seconds away. Yeah.
yeah.
What would you say to somebody who is scared about coming in for treatment? Like, what is some kind of kind advice you would offer
I
them?
find that if I share a little bit of my lived experience,
Hmm.
it just kind of settles them a little bit. I don't, not always do I say it in front of the families as well, but sometimes that even gives them a little bit of reassurance
Hmm.
because they see that I've changed my life, and it gives them a little bit more hope.
Yeah.
But they know when I'm doing the intake, if I know the verbiage, what they're talking about, they can usually tell that I'm sober myself and
Yeah,
I'm in
for sure.
recovery, right?
For
So.
sure. It's one thing, I'd have to say, just from talking to you, knowing you, seeing you around the facility, like you seem so put together all the time. And I find that with so many of our facility members, myself included, when we do share our story, people always look at us like, no,
Yeah.
really? And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, if I had shown you some back in the day pictures, like,
Yep.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And then when you tell the
Absolutely.
story too, I always say to people too, it's a big difference between, you go to school for 8 years, you become psychotherapist or whatever, and you can say, oh yeah, I can imagine how hard that is, versus you spew a little bit about where you've been and right away,
Hmm.
you're right, that wall kind of drops. Do you think you would be as effective at your job if you hadn't have gone through stuff?
I don't even know if I'd be in this field if I hadn't
Yeah.
gone through what I went through. I'm not sure where my direction would be, but I think that I have this ability to be able to put myself in their shoes because I've walked that
Yeah.
journey in my past. So I think that just gives me a unique ability to kind of understand them a little bit more.
I totally get it. 100%. I feel the same way. I mean, I've done so many different jobs, as you know, from welder, custodian, all these things. And I feel like almost these things had to happen to bring me to where I'm supposed to be,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Let me ask you, did you use 12 step in your recovery? Do you advocate for that a lot or?
I do like I don't necessarily when I'm doing counseling, I do counsel like I do
Yeah.
different modalities. If they're interested, if they show an interest in a 12-step modality, yes, I will share my experience in that. Yes, I am a 12-step person. I do go to meetings and that kind of stuff, but I do believe that for like some outside issues, counseling therapy is very beneficial as well. I also went to sober living, so that helped me along my journey as well.
It's interesting you mentioned sober living, because it's definitely something we don't think enough people out there are actually aware exists. Because the way I see it really is when you go to rehab, I'm glad you said the 90 days, because a lot of times people think 30 days, I'm going to come out cured or healed. And it's like they don't realize it's a non-linear path. You come out
Hmm.
on better footing and you come
Yes.
out with a structure and a plan, but you're not like, in the
There's
clear,
lots
so
of
to say.
work to be
Yeah.
done. Yeah.
What's your experience? Was like, how long were you in sober living?
I was in sober living for 13 months.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It was honestly, it was the best decision.
yeah,
Um, and I think that, looking back, that had I have not gone to sober living, I don't know that I would have had the sobriety time that I have today.
I love that you said that, because a lot of times I look at it like you go to rehab and it's very bubbled. It's amazing, don't get me wrong, but you're very bubbled. There's no triggers, there's no outside contact really, other than
Hmm.
the limited time. And then you go back into your regular life. And it's not long before, Donnie, your buddy, wants to go party. And it's like it all
Yeah.
goes out the window.
Hmm.
If you had to, and I know this is really tough, but what percentage of people would you say come back? Like, would you say like 10% relapse or less?
I think like I don't know the exact
I
statistics.
know it's
That's
tough.
that's a tough question. But if you just leave treatment and you don't do anything for your recovery, then you're going to be back.
Yeah.
And that's just the truth of it. But you have to make some changes. And whatever that looks like. Some people go the 12-step modality route. Some people add, maybe smart recovery, or they have counseling, therapy, different hobbies,
Yeah.
retreats, and like adding different things that they wouldn't usually do on their day-to-day. Some people change careers because they find that it's too stressful, whatever career they're doing. Some people go back to school to better their life. So it depends. It really depends on the person.
Yeah, I agree with you with the career too. I don't think enough people realize how triggering it can be. And sometimes you just kind of fall in a rut where you're like, this is normal, this is normal. Yeah. I use a little bit, that's normal. I use a lot, that's normal. And before they know it, it all kind of comes down, right? And what you said about hobbies too, could you talk a little bit about transitioning from like, okay, I'm going to go from addict to knitting? How would you suggest someone like, because I know for me, like when I stopped smoking marijuana, it was like I tried to pick up hobbies that thrilled me before, and I found almost like I was forcing it. And then slowly, organically, like it came out. Is there any kind of trick you would say to people finding a hobby that they could substitute? Or
I think just attaching new memories to new things. So going to campouts, I went in the fellowship that I was in, and I would go to a camp out, and it would be a sober camp out. So then I started getting used to camping sober. I love to go on vacations, and now I've gotten used to going on vacations sober. I hang out with friends, and we have games nights, and we're all sober in recovery.
Yeah.
So it makes it easier because now I've attached all these new memories to new things that I like to do.
That's really cool. I like that. And then I love, because from, the neurological standpoint, I mean, that's how you have to do it, right? You have to kind of teach yourself, hey, these things are cool without drugs or alcohol or that's awesome. How long have you been sober anyway? I don't know.
I just passed 7 years.
Wow. Congratulations. Yeah, that's huge.
You.
It's funny too, because one of the things I love doing on this show is showing people, like, I always say, sober doesn't have to suck. They think like, if I'm not out there having a ton of drinks or, doing this, doing that, it's going to be boring. And it's like, I think people need to realize, you have that transition period because you're not getting that simulated dopamine rush. But it really does get better.
Absolutely.
I used to always see, people saying, oh, I choose clarity. And I was like, when I was high, I was like, what a joke. Like, it's a bumper sticker, And then you get to that point where you're like, no, clarity is pretty freaking awesome, So that's why I love having, like I said, like yourself, like you seem put together. You go on all these trips. Like, you're always telling me about this vacation, that vacation, and all these cool things you're doing. And I think that's really something people need to see, that your life is actually going to be better. It's not just something we tell ourselves. And, you at 7 years know it's not always, oh my God, I have to resist the urge and that monkey on your back.
There's a lot of fun to be had in recovery.
Yeah.
And the idea is to be happy, joyous, and free. Right. And that's what we want to feel like. And there's some days that are tough, but that's okay. As a result of it, I don't have to put anything into my body today, right?
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. And I think that's another thing too, is that people need to realize, whether you're in recovery, whether you're addicted, whether you've never touched anything in your life, you're going to have tough days, like it's going to happen.
Yeah. Life happens.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And it could be anything from your coffee's made wrong to, your partner leaves you or you lose your job. Like it's all relative. Right. So no, I really like that you brought that up, because that is a big thing. I really hope people start to learn is that being sober doesn't suck. Quite the opposite, and you save a bunch of money.
Yeah, that too, for sure.
Save a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And you don't
spend it on vacation.
Yes, exactly. Right. Exactly. Instead of regrets. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then I think the other thing too is that, when you start to associate with other people who see it that way too, like you said, like you can find so many groups out there. I was just telling somebody actually in the family enhancement program, go on Meetup. You can find the most niche groups for whatever you're into. They were asking about like sober sports leagues. And I said, as much as you can find like a beer league, you can find a sober league. You can find people who celebrate, and even now, there's such a big movement of like mocktail parties and
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
game nights and stuff,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, no, that's great. Just before we wrap up, is there anything, it doesn't have to be huge, but anything you would say to anybody who's struggling or maybe doesn't even realize that they're struggling and they're just kind of in the thick of it, that you think could be like, a light or maybe something they need to hear?
Yeah, it would just be like give yourself a chance and have some hope and belief that you could do this. If I can be sober, and then I believe that anybody can do it as long as you put your mind to it. You know?
That's the key, right? I think a lot of times people come into our facility and they're like, I'm handing it over to you, you're going to get me better, and then it's not like getting over the flu, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Well, everybody, Alison Peticca, fantastic person,
Thank
absolutely
you.
wonderful for our facility. Thanks a lot for joining us today, and thanks so much for being
Thank you
here.
very
Always a
much.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Awesome.